Good evening and welcome to the City of Cedar Falls Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for this Wednesday, October 14th, 2020. And as has been the usual for a number of months, we are coming to you via video conference, and we'll continue the same operations as we have for the last number of months. If you're interested in participating, there is information on the city's website on how to connect via Zoom and participate in the meeting. So you're looking at us from another source and want to participate, that's something you can do. At this time, we'll have the roll call, and I notice a lot of commissioners are muted, so you'll need to make sure you're unmuted. So Ms. Howard, can you take the roll call? So,
interference here. Right. Okay, Atkins, absent, I believe. Hartley.
Here.
Holst.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Lynch.
Here.
Prideaux.
Here.
Saul. I think, oh, here comes Leanne. She's just joining us now. Hi, Leanne. We're just taking roll call. You're on mute. Yeah.
All righty, I'm here.
And
Karen, I'm here as well. I didn't hear my name called, but I'm here as well.
Sorry, Leaper.
Here.
And Shrod.
Here.
All present except for Atkins.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Howard. Our first item of business would be the approval of the minutes from the September 23rd, 2020 meeting. Is there a move to approve or any corrections to note?
And move to
So
approve.
moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Hearing none, that motion carries. Our next item of business on the agenda would be public comment. Getting a lot of feedback. Public comments, and that would be on anything that's not on the agenda tonight. If there's anybody in attendance who would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand on Zoom and I will recognize you. Give you a moment. Seeing none, we will move on from public comments and go into our one item. We have a special presentation tonight, and it's the Imagine College Hill Virtual Community Design Charrette presentation. And Karen, are you going to introduce this?
Yes, I can do that. Yes, tonight last week we had the Imagine College Hill Community Design Charrette. We did that via Zoom, and we had some good participation from the community. And tonight we have some members of our consultant team, Jeff Farrell and Mary Madden and Anita Morrison are here to give a presentation, sort of a report out, a work in progress report from that community design charrette. So with that, I just hand it over to, I believe Jeff was going to start out the presentation. Oh, Mary's going to start out for us tonight.
Okay, am I able to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. Is that okay, Karen?
Yes, we can see you fine. You bet.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you, members of the Planning Commission, for allowing us to come do this update on the Imagine College Hill project. I am going to start with a little bit of background for you all and members of the public who may not have been involved with the project to date, and then give a little bit of detail on last week's activities. And then Anita Morrison, who is the economist in our team, will provide a little bit of information on the market analysis for the College Hill area. And then Jeff Farrell will have the fun part of taking us through some aspirational ideas, a vision for the future, what could happen in College Hill as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to jump in and give you a little background about the project. The City Council last January adopted a set of priorities for this visioning effort. These will be available, this entire presentation will be available on the project website as well as the regular public TV station that you all have there. So the council adopted a set of project priorities for us as we were engaged to start thinking about the future of College Hill. The first task for us is to really understand what College Hill is, strengths and weaknesses. We want to make sure everyone understands our study area was bigger than what's traditionally thought of in College Hill. We were looking at historic plans, looking at the zoning ordinance. We also spent some time last January walking around the district. And so when people tell us that it gets cold there, we know that, we appreciate it. We got to experience it firsthand. We walked around the neighborhoods, the business district, saw good, bad, ugly, indifferent, new houses, old houses, student housing, residential neighborhoods. So, and of course, the University of Northern Iowa. We feel like we had a pretty good sense of what the district is like today, including that there are new houses in the area that, I apologize for that. I'm not sure what just happened. New infill that has happened, as well as the historic nature of the district. We started really analyzing what the areas look like to us, understanding that it's not all the same. We did a series of meetings in January. We met with student leaders, property owners, landlords, neighborhood groups. We had a public session where we got people to tell us what they liked, what they didn't like, looking at maps of the area, identifying strengths and weaknesses, telling us the type of development they liked and didn't like, didn't want to see. We ended up with a set of maps with red and green dots, as well as written comments on why they did or didn't like different things, as well as a bunch of posters where people use the green and red dots to tell us what they liked for the area, both in the residential neighborhoods and in the core. These are some of the things that they didn't want to see in the future, the nearby neighborhoods, so not just the business district, but potential houses in the area. Last week, we were with you virtually. We had planned to do this event last March, and as we all are aware, we sort of were overtaken by events. So last week we did hold, as Karen indicated, a virtual charrette. We participated with the members of the community via Zoom, via the project website, a few different opportunities for engagement. On Saturday, we had a virtual session with breakout rooms where members of the community worked with facilitators from our team and really highlighted specific areas in the College Hill study area, things they liked and didn't like again. But even more, we started digging into what people would like to see in the future, what they would like to see in the business area, in the neighborhoods, the parks, the trails, etc. We captured a lot of information during that session. Some big picture of what we heard a lot about the importance of preserving the neighborhoods. We heard about the importance of walkability, the natural areas, the need for street trees, replanting street trees. We heard about people's desire for more options to do with retail and dining in the heart of College Hill. And we heard quite a bit about bicycles. There are some people who said perhaps on Saturday the bicycle ped community was overrepresented, but we did hear a lot about bicycles. Our team met virtually, working together on design ideas as well as a series of technical meetings. We met with business and property owners, realtors, the city public works staff, Met Transit. As I mentioned, the Ped Bike Committee. We talked with parking folks, both from the city and the university. We talked with code enforcement. We talked with the College Hill Partnership. So we really tried to make sure we had a good sense of what was going on as we started exploring ideas for the future. In addition, we did do an online survey for UNI students, and we captured a lot of information there. Some was what we might have expected, that for housing, location was important. We also found out that there was a bit of pent-up demand for a few activities on the Hill that are not there today. So going forward, we started synthesizing what we learned last week, as well as all the way back what we learned from January when we were there on the ground, what we learned from various stakeholder meetings and document review. So here's a quick summary of some of the big ideas for thinking about the future of College Hill. But I'm just going to highlight these, and then as we go through the vision, I think you'll see how a lot of these things could come to life. First and foremost, we heard about the importance of stabilizing and enhancing the neighborhoods around the business center district, around the university. And by that, we mean not just that the houses and the areas maintained, the character's great, but there was a desire that rental properties be better maintained. There was a desire that perhaps the ratio between owner and renters, if that could be stabilized, that would also be important. The corollary to that was the idea that the student housing should be more intense and concentrated closer to the campus, and that actually could help with stabilizing the neighborhood, so the students wouldn't be sprinkled all through the neighborhoods quite as much. As you'll hear from the economist, Anita, that idea of bringing the students closer together could have several other positive effects. We heard quite a lot about the concept of reconnecting the lower and upper hill, improving walkability generally throughout the area. Again, we heard a lot about the desire to have more retail, shopping, and dining options in the district. We heard about the importance of the natural areas, the trails, the parks, Searley Park, the prairie area down to the south of the district, as well as the importance of adding street trees that have been lost over the years and maintaining them. We heard a lot about the crab apples on Searley Boulevard and the concern that they maybe needed to have a little upkeep. We did hear a lot about biking, not just the trails, but how do you get around the district and how do you get downtown. We heard about the importance of making parking better. And then last but not least, especially from last January, we heard quite a bit about the importance to improve Hidden Valley in the long term. There were quite a few people who were concerned about that whole area within the College Hill district. What about mobility on College Hill? I didn't mention we had a transportation engineer on our team. He's been analyzing the traffic counts, the parking study that's been done, looking at the ped bike ideas. These are the principles that he's recommended the vision plan should incorporate. As I said, this all will be available online, so I'm not going to read through all of these. One of the meetings we had with the ped bike committee, we heard a lot about the trails and the routes and where improvements could be used for ped connections, bicycle connections. Wayfinding, we heard, is really good if you're on the trail, but if you're in other parts of Cedar Falls, people said it's not clear how you find the trail. We also heard folks want there to be better pedestrian markings for crosswalks. We looked at the existing street sections. We will be making some recommendation that's really long-term if there are opportunities to improve those. Again, high level, we looked at the parking study you've just completed. The black check mark is some steps that have already been implemented. Few ideas are included midterm that will tie into us updating the zoning code and looking at the current parking standards. And then longer term, just how parking could be improved and managed that will help with the development of the entire district. With that whirlwind tour, I want to hand the microphone to Anita, who is going to tell us a little bit about what she found out in the market analysis she's completed.
So it's probably pretty self-evident that the demand and the potential for housing on College Hill is directly tied to the enrollment at UNI. But even though we've seen recent declines in enrollment, there still is an opportunity for new housing within that close-in, tightly defined portion of College Hill, where we could get students closer to campus and closer to the retailers to give them better support. That we're probably looking at it in terms of smaller increments, 10, 20, 30, or 40 units at a time, as opposed to a mega project of 100 or 200 units because of that link to the student enrollment levels. But what we find is that the conditions will not really support new housing development without some adjustment for parking and for and some additional incentives. The reality is that a lot of the existing houses they're used for students are too valuable to just tear down unless you can replace them with multiple units. And the requirements for parking are fairly high relative to the available land. So we need to look at those holistically and look for ways to make sure that the developers can in fact make a profit if they buy and redevelop the existing units. There's obviously now there's an interest in, as we said, stabilizing some of the surrounding neighborhoods and particularly converting some of the student housing that now exists that used to be single family housing, convert that back to single family use, either rental or ownership. We think that's unlikely in this very close in portion of College Hill, but the better opportunities would be north of 18th Street and east of Iowa, where the neighborhood has more families still living in the area and is not dominated by students. Okay, next slide. And then on the commercial side, I think generally the College Hill needs a larger retail base. It needs greater diversity. It needs more choices for people as they decide where to head out for entertainment or to go to dinner. It helps to have multiple options available depending on their mood at the time. So we'd like to see some new opportunities created for retail on the Hill. Specifically, it would be useful to tie together the lower hill and the upper hill to fill in that gap between 21st and 22nd Street so that they can work together for synergy and both do better at attracting customers. I think in general, the quality of the open space, quality of the public space is critical in terms of making it an appealing location with specialty lighting, murals, public art, wider sidewalks, street trees, and the rest to make it a more vibrant and appealing district that will give people a reason to come back again and again. And then we heard quite a few people interested in having a small grocery store on the Hill so that they could meet more of their day-to-day needs without having to travel outside to a larger grocery store. The demand exists for a small grocery store of probably 8,000 to 10,000 square feet, but it will depend on finding the right operator and the right site. We don't have many opportunities for a site of half an acre to 0.8 of an acre. So that will be a challenge as we go forward.
Thanks, Anita. I just want to circle back on one thing I think Anita hinted at, and then the idea that we really need to think differently about the whole district, the pedestrian environment, the idea that with increased development potential, that creates the opportunity for more retail and dining possibilities. We need to think about parking district-wide, not so much parcel by parcel. And as we look at the zoning ordinance, we need to think about right-sizing the parking requirements particularly those that are really in close proximity to you and I. And we need to start thinking about, are there opportunities for the city and the university to coordinate further on parking management? So big picture, it's going to be really important moving forward that to really think about opportunities for redevelopment, we need to think about a big picture so that we can unlock that potential. As I said, Jeff is going to do the fun part and now talk about, we have all this area. Jeff.
Yes. Talking about the vision is I know Mary had a lot of fun talking about that other stuff, but this is the fun stuff because it's visioning, thinking about what the place wants to be. The first element of this is we looked at character areas. You know, Mary had an early look at this graphic showing what a quick take on this was at the beginning of the charrette. Coming out of it, it's gotten more refined. There are several character areas, and first of all is the area close in, the orange and red, right at the university, heavily influenced by the university, then the yellow areas around it. Quick point, these character areas, they're not completely uniform within them. There's subtle differences, but they're kind of a big overview. The neighborhoods around the study area, I would say way down south, the southwest neighborhood, we've colored it teal here, but the yellow and the teal, these are areas, they're really residential houses. If there's any kind of mixed use in there, it's under the radar or something. And then I would point out also the purple areas on the east side of Main Street. There are areas of commerce, and they vary from things like lumber yards, taverns. These are things that people use all the time. They're important. Going into the Main Street and heart of College Hill area, talk specifically about the Main Street. That's the area you think of with storefronts. It's quite, it's really small, compact currently, and you'll see in a minute, there's kind of a gap between the upper and the lower areas. But this is the broad framework within which we work. Next slide. The overall illustrative plan, and we're going to talk about this, everything you're seeing, by the way, is a work in progress. First thing you notice is we're drawing where we're talking about change or models for change. So notice the areas we're not drawing. We're not proposing change in the neighborhood areas around the study area. We're really concentrated close to the university. And I want to make a point about what an illustrative plan is. This is an illustration of the things that could happen under the vision, given some policy and regulation adjustments. It's an idea of what could happen, not what will happen. And I want to make it clear, these are generally, as a rule, not things that the city is going to come in and do. This is about setting up private sector development. And it's a way of illustrating and imagining what the future could be under, given what the citizens told us. So let's go to the first one, which is a look at a model really for if there's going to be new development in the stable neighborhoods around the university. To the right side, or the north side of that Iowa Street, those two new houses. One is a single family house. It's a simple model, single family house, front porch. You'll notice the garage is not on the front. It's behind in the back. And to the left of it is a simple, I'll call it a double house. You could call it a duplex. Again, it's simple, front porch to the street, parking garage in the back off the alley. It just presents a friendly, consistent face that's really fairly similar to the tradition of the existing houses in the area. Next slide. And these are prototypes. A lot of talk about improving the gateways to College Hill. This is the example at Searly and Main Street. First part of that, pedestrian bike connections. Mary mentioned that, connecting the bikeways to the trailways. And here's an idea of what could happen at that intersection, things that could be built. You notice that across the street, there is a small gas station now. It's been reconfigured, but it's still a gas station. We sometimes call this gas backwards, with a little tongue in cheek, but the idea is the building is put forward to the street, and then the gas pumps are back behind the building and shielded from the neighbors by a wall. It's to present a more urban face to the street. Next slide. And now down onto College Street. There's currently a pretty sizable gap of a good block between 21st and 22nd. And here's a what if with some policy and regulation adjustments. Here are two buildings. The one on the right is on the Bonnie's site. The one on the left, there are currently 3 houses there. These are mixed-use buildings, storefronts on the front, apartments or offices up above. Again, this takes adjustment to the regulations. Next slide. Now, imagine the possibilities as we're about to see what this would look like from the ground. Looking north on College Street, first improvements to the public infrastructure with trees, better sidewalks, marked intersections, and then the possibilities for private sector development. A new building on the Banny's lot, new, more intense development, multi-story residences above. And for this section, definitely storefronts on the ground floor. If you make some changes to policies and regulations. Next slide. Infill housing at the heart of College Hill. By this, we mean right by the university. That's the university, that white building on the upper right. The first example would be stacked flats, small apartment buildings on existing lots. These are possible without combining lots, and then larger small apartment buildings that would take some lot combinations. Currently on the sites, there are houses that have been, I think all, but for the most part, cut up into multiple student housing apartments. Next slide. And one of my favorites, a piece of 23rd Street was closed to traffic because there are some, it's an oddly shaped intersection. And now it's a parking lot, but what if that were turned into a plaza with buildings facing it? And yes, we have talked to the property owners here. And then so it still could be used as a parking area during the week, but special occasions, it could be closed off and become a great site for what we call a festival street. Next slide. And now we're going to go down to the ground and see what that might look like standing in front of the Cloud 9
Nope.
business. This is what it looks like today. Again, some public infrastructure, paving, street tree improvements, and then private sector development comes in. Storefronts, apartments or offices above. Notice there's an empty lot that you're looking at the far end. Street trees. So this turns from being just a parking lot to a really positive place. And this shows a kind of Saturday market that could be had. I don't know if Cedar Falls does it, but a lot of cities have Christmas markets. And I immediately get a vision of this with Christmas lights strung over the street and stalls in the middle. Despite the cold, I know Iowans come out on Christmas time. And again, next slide. This requires some alterations in policies and regulations. Next slide. And Dry Run Creek, I have to say, we were told that one participant said in her 30 years, Dry Run Creek has never run dry, but we know it has flooded. And there are two projects right here. The great infrastructure improvements have been done in terms of handling the stormwater on Dry Run Creek so that the floodplain and the floods literally are lessened and better controlled. This is a proposal to build on that and first have a continuous connected and treed bicycle and ped path. Thank you, Mary. All the way from Campus Street through to Olive. Now, one more click. On the left side of this, there's some big dormitories and lots of students, many times of the day and night, are moving from there to College Street back and forth. Part of this is about giving them a good, well-lighted, safe path to travel. And it's also taking that creek to the next level and doing some beautification and making it an amenity that contributes to the area. Next, one more click. The second part of this, you may have noticed that there is a big parking area on the north side of 20th Street here. This area, very nearly all of that side of 20th Street, at least the lots fronting it, are in the floodplain. So this is a proposal talking about a possibility for some or all of those lots to be used as a kind of community parking area that would take some of the load from other developments to the south of it. And also I want to stress, we're calling it green parking. The idea is this would be not just a blacktop laid down, but it would be a parking area with permeable pavement and bioswales. Along the street, you would have a green wall. So when you walked down that sidewalk, you wouldn't be walking in front of a parking lot, but by a green wall with extra street trees, shrubbery, etc. Next. And wrapping up, reminder that the illustrative plan and everything you're seeing is a work in progress in pursuit of the really great City Council project priorities. And we're showing you, the Planning Commission, and the public this because we're trying to get your feedback, which we would like you to give it to us ASAP, but you do have until really the end of October. Go on to our cedarfalls.com. And I won't read the rest of the schedule to you there, but we're looking forward to your comments and to moving this forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeff and team. Is there any comments or questions for the presenters here tonight on the College Hill plan? Let me look here, see if we've got anything from P&Z members. Okay, I'm looking through the attendees list, and I'll see if anybody would like to raise your hand on the Zoom. I can recognize you if you have a question. Not seeing any hands raised. Any final comments, Karen? I think you're
Muted.
muted. Karen, I think you're muted.
I apologize for that. I was just going to say thank you very much to the consultants. And if the commission has any questions or comments too, this is a good time to do that. I see that Dale's waving his hand here. He has a comment.
Yes, there were several comments about having to change some of the ordinances and different things that are related to the College Hill. Is mainly that due to parking restrictions and number of students in parking, or number of students in residence for parking, or for businesses also? Could you shed a little light on what those changes might need to be?
I can only shed a little bit of light on that in that, yes, parking is a big part of the equation. And we're looking at, exactly how that might be adjusted. And that's really our next phase. We're diving into that. So that's a question, and there'll be a lot of discussion on it.
Great, go ahead, Leanne.
Couple of the other things I think we need to look at is the building height and stories and some of that. Isn't that correct, Marty?
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
So one of the goals of the project is to create a vision, and then based on that vision that we hear from the community to build the tools to achieve that vision. And one of those important tools, of course, is to update the zoning ordinance. And I think the team here will be working on that as the next step.
Great.
Yeah.
Leanne?
I just wanted to say it's a much needed improvement, to see those buildings and to see that the retail and then the upper stories. It's a much needed improvement, I think.
What's the time frame on transforming some of these visions into proposed changes to ordinance or code, I mean?
Karen, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to start and you finish?
Go ahead and start, and then I can chime in, I guess.
So as you may be aware, we worked on the downtown vision plan about a year and a half ago. And so we have done the very initial preliminary draft review that staff is reviewing on that. And we'll start, I think, moving that forward. And so then the proposed changes for College Hill, as Karen said, will be built on the vision plan. So we need to make sure, we don't want to start tweaking the existing zoning until the plan is adopted, because we want to make sure that we're, drafting things that will implement that plan. We have been reviewing the existing zoning, so we have a sense of what issues may be out there, from, as everybody's already mentioned, to parking, to how infill is handled in the surrounding neighborhoods, where mixed use is currently permitted and where it's not. So we're going to be looking at all those sort of different aspects of the current zoning. The overlay is already in place, and I think it was a big advance when it was adopted a few years ago. But so we're really looking at taking that next step. Some of the changes may also be on the procedure side. Some will be about the standards themselves, and some will be, can we actually make the process work better for staff, for you all as the Planning Commission, as well as for the development community. Because as Anita highlighted, some of these things, we can change the rules, but if the development community isn't able to do it on the private sector side, then it doesn't matter so much what the rules are. The development will still really be kind of locked up. So I think we'll be starting to look at changes and starting to think about recommended changes this winter. And I think it will probably be spring before we move forward, because this is going to really build on the work that we're doing in downtown, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now, Karen, you want to say anything more?
I think that covers it pretty well. We are I want to emphasize this will build on that framework that we're doing some of that initial work with the procedures and some of those administrative aspects of zoning that we'll have to put in place. And then once those are in place, the actual regulations and that sort of thing can happen with College Hill as well as downtown. So it just builds on that framework that we're working on in downtown as well.
You all do this across the country. Was there anything that really surprised you about this project that's maybe different?
I don't know if Jeff and Anita have anything they want to say. There was
COVID-19.
Anita didn't mention this, but one of the things I found really interesting is, as much as people would like to see more, retail and dining, et cetera, on the Hill, I thought it was very positive that there really isn't any commercial vacancy to speak of. So I think that's a strength to work from. We've definitely been in other communities where they're trying to create a market where they don't really have one. The university is a wonderful asset, but for the neighborhood, it's a double-edged sword. It brings a great strength to the neighborhood, but also there are certain things that the neighborhood has to, struggle with because they have students, which are really, really important, but then that also makes the dynamic a little bit different.
Very good. Any final questions or comments, commissioners? Seeing none? Well, thank you for the wonderful presentation. And this is going to be, so this information is going to be available on the city website, right? So people will want to come and study it further in the coming days. It's available there for more detailed review, right?
I was going to say, ourcedarfalls.com is the web page for this project. So it's pretty easy to find, and it should be right on the city's website, a link to that as well.
Great. All right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the continued work. Our next item of business under the old business calendar is a land use map amendment and rezoning from on the Aluma from office and industrial park to planned development and a whole bunch of other things. And who's introducing that tonight?
I'll speak to that tonight. I am going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay.
Yes.
Can everybody see okay?
Mm-hmm.
Does it look okay, everybody?
Looks good.
Marty? Okay, very good. So as Marty alluded to, this is a request for a land use map amendment from office and business park to planned development, and also a rezoning request. And I'll just run through the slides. We had an initial meeting on this on September 9th, as you recall. And then we took some time to work with the developer on to revising some of the plan maps and that sort of thing. So I'll just run back through some of these concepts and what the proposal is, just to refresh everybody's memory, and for those who might be joining or watching on TV. So this is the location of the proposal. It's at Cedar Heights Drive, just north of Huntington Road, where the rezoning request is. So the proposed zoning here's the zoning plat. The western approximately 12 acres here, you can see Cedar Heights Drive on the right side of the screen, Green Creek Road to the north, and some single family homes to the south. Part of the land is zoned agriculture, and really that's a holding zone until it's ripe for development. The R1 zoning district is intended for single family, low scale development. And the proposal is to rezone this entire area then to mixed use residential zoning district, which is a master planned district It does provide some flexibility in lot sizes, but as you know, there's a master plan that's required to ensure that the whole neighborhood then develops in sort of an orderly fashion with all the amenities expected for a high quality neighborhood. So the proposal here is to incorporate this new land area into the larger Pinnacle Prairie mixed use district that's located to the west, and update that master plan accordingly. So here you see just a little history about the area. This is the 2015 master plan for Pinnacle Prairie. You can see it's a very large area here. Here's Prairie Parkway running through the middle, Viking Road on the south, Green Hill Road on the north, and here's Cedar Heights on the east. So it's a large area, and the next screen you can see some of that area has built out already, but there's a large area sort of in the middle here, the residential portion of it largely that has yet to build out. So one of the things we look at when we get a rezoning request is it in compliance with the comprehensive plan? So we look to the future land use map, and the designation here on the map you can see on the right here of the screen. It's shown as planned development, which is in the a dark purple here, and then the office and business park, which is in the light pink here. And then it shows the floodplain within the greenways in green. You can see there's kind of an odd irregular boundary between the business area and the mixed or the planned development area. And so the proposal here is to really change that to indicate planned development for this entire area. Staff finds that's a reasonable thing to do. We find that the future land use map is a little oddly drawn here, and additional residential will support the existing zoning for commercial development that's in the vicinity already. So staff does recommend approval of the request for a land use map amendment in this location. With regard to updating the master plan, in order to rezone property to mixed use, it's required to have a master plan. And the master plan, according to the zoning code, has to include a number of different things. The zoning approval cannot be given without approval of a development site plan. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is the update of that 2015 master plan to include a new concept plan for that area, which has been called Pinnacle Prairie East. That area has a new street layout, shared open space, and regional stormwater management facilities. It fleshes out a little bit more what was originally shown in the 2015 plan. And also, along with that, we'll need to update the developmental procedures agreement we have with the developer, between the city and the developer, according to this new plan, and address several unresolved issues from that 2015 master plan update. So you can see here this proposed new master plan, and it looks a little different than what you saw on the September 9th meeting. What the development team has done is incorporated that Pinnacle Prairie East concept plan into the master plan. You can see that here. You can see this area is the area that's really changed quite a bit then from the original, what was a bubble diagram on the original 2015 plan. Another thing that we always look at when we get rezoning requests is to make sure that it has good access to public services. We just want to note that water, electric, gas, and communications, utility services are all available in accordance with CFU policies. Sanitary sewer lines are in place already that would provide connections to future development. With regard to the original master plan, it does indicate a regional stormwater management plan for the area, following the drainage pattern that exists today. This area also includes the floodplain here. You can see on the map in blue for Green Creek. New lots would not, we noted this last time, we just want to mention it again, that new lots would not be allowed to be platted with more than 25% of the lot area in the floodplain. So some of the concept plan did show some of those lots in the floodplain. So the developer has placed a note on the concept plan that it would need to be adjusted accordingly at the time of when they come in for a preliminary plat. So staff found that that was acceptable to be just noted for that platting level. So here you see a highlight of that Pinnacle Prairie East concept plan with the open space parks and trails shown on that. The mixed use district does require 10% of the land area to remain as open space. The open space here coincides with the floodplain. As you see, the trails do extend over through this area and connect with what is proposed to be a 3.5 acre park here. So that was all presented at the last meeting. One of the things that was mentioned was an importance of connecting a trail to a future small commercial area here. And so they have changed that to show that trail connection directly adjacent to the commercial area. With the new area added, the calculations were redone on the master plan and updated with the new proposed area that's being proposed for rezoning and including in that master planned area. This is the multifamily area largely here. Again, once again, that open space and trails, any of those things need to be addressed in more detail in the development agreement. Generally, the land uses proposed are here on the concept plan. The yellow area is really largely for single family homes. There's a townhome area shown here, multifamily dwellings shown up here on the east side. And then the small neighborhood commercial area shown along Cedar Heights Drive next to Huntington Road. The proposal is to use the current Pinnacle Prairie General Design Guidelines, which was included with the original master plan, to guide the design of new development with the aesthetic of the entire area. So those guidelines would then cover the new rezoned area. Those guidelines include building design, landscaping standards, signage standards, and generally go for a more prairie style aesthetic. At the last meeting, there was some discussion about further refinement of the townhome area with a focus on alley loaded types shown in the design guidelines. The developer has revised this area and showed a refined area showing the majority of the townhomes then with the vehicular access from a rear alley. You can see a fronting streets, on Street K here and Street J, and then some front-loaded types still along Street D. We just want to note, staff wants to note that the rear-loaded townhomes do provide a number of benefits to the neighborhood overall. They do help reduce traffic congestion on the fronting streets because, of course, the people that live there accessing their homes from the alleys. Sidewalks are then along the streets are uninterrupted with the fronting driveways. And when you get narrow lot development like townhomes, of course, the driveways, if they're fronting the streets, take up all the street frontage or most of the street frontage, and you don't get much of a sidewalk network. You don't have places for front yard landscaping or street trees. And of course, it takes up all the space on the street that could be used for visitors. So the rear loaded units, especially when they get pretty narrow like townhomes, is a really good model to make sure that the whole neighborhood benefits from that intensity of development. Here we're showing a highlight of the future small neighborhood commercial area here. As I said, they adjusted that trail location to show that it conceptually would connect with the commercial area. One of the other things we noted is that the single family, the R1 area along Cedar Heights here, there's homes built here on these lots, but the lots are actually split and there's some additional lot area to the west here that is potential development ground in the future. We don't know if and when that might occur, but what we like to do is we like to plan for that so that we're not foreclosing the possibility of some future development. So when we get to the planning stage, we'll just want to take a look and make sure that roads are connected here so that there's the potential for a road connection to allow for future development if that were ever to occur. Then focusing in on the rezoning request for the multifamily. What's proposed is approximately 12 units per acre. It's clustered outside then the floodplain. The buildings shown here are generally oriented toward the street with parking located behind, under, and to the side of the buildings, and screened with landscaping. So those are the general principles here to make a nice multifamily neighborhood with good access to the on-site open space and then the amenities of the trails and the neighborhood connections. Moving on to the street network and traffic circulation. The 2015 master plan illustrated the major roadway alignments, access locations, and proposed intersections for major streets within the development. And here you see that sort of bubble diagram from the original, from the 2015 plan. The lots and blocks are not really illustrated, so it's difficult to understand exactly how the streets, trails, and open space and stormwater management would function as a whole. So this refined concept plan starts to address these issues and would be kind of precursor to a preliminary plat. So here you can see that refined concept plan again. There's some positive aspects, of course, to what they're proposing here. It's good public access to the trail network and the 3.5 acre park that's shown centrally here along the floodplain. The streets are laid out in an attractive sort of curvilinear pattern, yet most of them are connected. There's not a lot of cul-de-sacs shown here. And the open space seems to be well distributed throughout the neighborhood and coincides with the floodplain and the stormwater management areas. There is one remaining issue though, and it's a significant issue. Staff finds this to be concerning. The concept plan eliminates the one east-west connection to Cedar Heights Drive from the entirety of Pinnacle Prairie. Now that leaves about 4,000 feet between Green Hill Road and Viking Road without a collector street connection. And generally for good traffic circulation, we'd be looking at collector streets about approximately every quarter mile. So this is really an important connection for the entire neighborhood to access the neighborhood destinations, employment areas, and really to connect with those north-south travel routes. Here's again that 2015 master plan that's currently in place. It does illustrate a single family area going out to Cedar Heights Drive in that plan. The current master plan would allow approximately, given the length of the street connection that would extend out here, about 24 to 30 single family homes. With this proposed rezoning, it would yield approximately 180 dwelling units. So really the economics of extending that street across Green Creek will improve with the proposed upzoning. And staff is in support of intensifying the use here for multifamily, but feel that connection is really important and recommends against eliminating that from the master plan. There's a public safety aspect to that, and it's really best practice to include more than one means of access to a development area. In contrast to like a single family area, generally we're looking at more than one means of access when you have more than 30 dwelling units. Here we have a proposal for 180 dwelling units with only one means of access proposed to Cedar Heights Drive. Really connecting the street will improve emergency access, not only for this multifamily area, but for the single family area as well, because there would not be then this cul-de-sac here. So generally more travel routes, the lower the emergency response time for fires and other emergencies. Staff notes that the upzoning will allow more density, will help to, again, offset that additional cost of extending a street across the floodplain. And the platting the concept plan area will will really help determine those costs for then recapture from all the benefited properties, not just necessarily from the multifamily area, so that can be spread over the larger development and to recapture the cost of that, because really the whole neighborhood benefits from that street connection. The staff recommends eliminating the cul-de-sac that's labeled Court A and extending that to the east to connect with Cedar Heights Drive. And that follows really the alignment of a farm access road that was previously extended across Green Creek. But there may be other options for an east-west connection, and staff is open to exploring those options with the development team. You know, Prairie View Road, for example, there could be a different routing, a different street pattern here that might create a different connection that might be equally satisfactory. But right now, what we're seeing with the proposal is that no street is proposed to extend here. You know, in the staff recommendation, we find that the proposed increase in development density is acceptable as long as there's adequate street access, and provided the parking and open space amenities are provided to really create that high quality living environment for future residents. We think that the master plan and the concept plan are well thought out, other than this one aspect of it. The city is in the process of making improvements to Cedar Heights Drive. There's a potential future roundabout at Huntington Drive to allow for the extension to the west to serve that commercial area, and as a potential means of future access to the land area to the north, as I mentioned before, if that were ever to develop. With regard to the technical comments that we covered last time, the things that are highlighted in red really have been made some progress on since your last meeting. As we noted, there were a couple things that weren't quite implemented from the last agreement. The developer has now provided a concept plan for the improvement at the end of Goldenrod Street, the street stub, and has provided a concept plan for the Prairie Parkway, Prairie View Road roundabout. And so we're looking at those. They're still developing the cost estimates for those. We'd be looking for construction of these improvements and the timing of that, and to be addressed really in the development agreement. So staff recommends that prior to approval of the rezoning, that the owner pays funds based on those cost estimates into an escrow equivalent to the cost, and a new developmental procedures agreement would then be drafted and signed prior to setting a public hearing at City Council for this rezoning request. So in summary then, the staff recommendation is that the Community Development Department recommends approval of the land use map amendment, which is an amendment to the Cedar Falls land use map, changing the office and business park designation located along the west side of Cedar Heights Drive and north of Huntington Road, south of Green Hill Road to planned development. With regard to the rezoning request, staff finds that the rezoning and the associated increase in residential density is really acceptable and really desirable, as long as the Pinnacle Prairie Mixed Use District Master Plan is amended to integrate the land into the larger Pinnacle Prairie neighborhood as outlined in the staff report, including the critical east-west street connection to Cedar Heights Drive. Since the applicant has not agreed to modify that proposed concept plan to include that east-west street connection, at this point in time, staff is recommending denial of the rezoning request and amendment of the Pinnacle Prairie Master Plan as proposed by the applicant. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and there's a number of different paths forward, and we're hoping that we can do that, but at this point in time, we can't recommend approval of what's being shown.
Thank you, Karen. So there's really two items of business on this thing. There's the land use map amendment, which the staff is recommending approval on, and then there is the zoning change, which you're not ready to recommend as presented, right? We have two items.
That's correct. That's correct.
two items that we are discussing is, so at this point, do we have representatives from the developer who would like to follow up on the presentation? There's Mike. Okay, Mike, you need to unmute yourself, Mike. You there, Mike? I think you're unmuted.
Okay. Now, can everybody hear me?
We can.
All right, great. Thanks for having us back. Thanks for giving us the opportunity tonight. I'm Mike Shoppy with Shoppy Design Associates. We're the firm that's been working with the Oster Family Partnership for about 5 years now, 5 or 6 years, furthering the development planning for Pinnacle Prairie, reviewing the developments as they come forward, and of course, now with the addition of this property, coming up with some additional development plans. Also with us tonight is Carrie Hansen from our office. Carrie's our Director of Planning and Government Services. And we also have Wendell Lupkus with us from BJ Engineering. He is our civil engineer on the project. So we've got some information all three of us would like to share as part of our proposal. For just a quick overview, as Karen had done, for those that weren't in attendance at the last meeting, Ms. Oster had purchased this 15 acres that we're showing as the open space and multifamily late last year. And we had the approved 2015 plan, and we wanted to rezone that property so that we could fold that into our development planning. And we considered different zoning options and discussed them with the staff and decided that the MU was the proper way to go for a variety of reasons. And so we started the process. And it seemed to us that the multifamily made sense there because of for a couple of reasons. One, the size of the parcel, it's about 12 acres. That creates a nice neighborhood for a multifamily development. But also considering the multifamily area, the Cedar Hill Estates, which is immediately to the north. It's a multifamily development immediately north of the site. And also the fact that there is the zoning or the entitlement on the property on the east side of Cedar Heights is for a commercial development. And we have this large green space that runs through the property that provides a nice buffer between a higher density use like multifamily and the single family uses to the west. So we thought that the multifamily was a good fit for the area, given the existing entitlements and the existing developments and character of the neighborhood. Some of the point I wanted to make on the Pinnacle Prairie East concept plan, the concept plan that we're showing is not a new concept. It's the same concept that was illustrated in the 2015 plan. And as Karen had showed in the bubble diagrams, you saw the yellow bubbles for residential, the orange bubbles for the townhomes. All of those areas have stayed the same. We're not changing any of those land use areas or the land uses in any of those areas. The major street connections are the same as they were planned in 2015. The greenway corridors, the stormwater management areas, the sanitary sewer services are all the same as we had planned for in that 2015 plan. But we did provide, of course, as you saw, some additional detailing, showing additional roads, lottings, showing the buildings in the townhomes. So the staff could see how our multifamily land area could fit with the rest of Pinnacle Prairie. And that was really the intent of the concept plan. But I didn't want to have anybody construe that we're proposing a new concept plan for that area that's lying to the west. And Karen, correct me if I'm wrong with that. But we were happy to show that additional detail because it does give everybody a better idea and a better understanding how the pieces are starting to fit together. And we have worked, I think, starting back in July or January of this year with our discussions with the staff and our design work. And I'm going to ask Carrie Hansen just to give a quick overview of some of those changes that we've incorporated and how we've worked with the staff since our initial application. Carrie, are you there?
Yeah, here I'll let.
Oh, I'm sorry. You've got to do that.
Let me get Carrie on here. Carrie, I think you should be on. Are you there?
Am I here?
Yes, you're good. Go
Can y'all
ahead.
hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Just real briefly to give a little bit of the history, so that everybody understands, that this is something that we've been trying to work with the staff on, and it has been an evolution from the beginning, dating back to January of this year, when our initial concept and Mr. Oster's initial concept was, this property was available next to a project that he was developing, and what better way to ensure the development of that piece than to acquire it. Back then, he was just simply thinking, okay, let's look at this as a small multifamily pocket. And our initial proposal was simply to bring that in as an R4, and not really look to connecting it to Pinnacle Prairie. However, after some discussions with the city staff and with our client, we all agreed that the best way to ensure the quality was to make sure that it was part of Pinnacle Prairie, and that we would apply those same quality of development standards to this new piece that would then be brought in. So we actually did a full submittal, a rezoning submittal back in January. However, after several months and COVID-19, as we heard earlier this evening, in June, we resubmitted a different proposal. And that proposal was the genesis for the petition that's before you this evening. And that was to instead rezone that area to NU, make it part of the Pinnacle Prairie project. That initial proposal did not include a detailed portion of the concept plan. And that was the packet that went to the Technical Review Committee back on July 1st of this year. We got some very good feedback, some good direction from that initial Technical Review Committee from the staff. And then we revised and resubmitted at the end of July. I went back to the TRC with that proposal. We had provided that additional detail that Karen was speaking to relative to the lotting and the streets, and the more detail for that, what we now call the Pinnacle Prairie East section. Looked at the townhome area, all of those things that are kind of evolving before us and now constitute our proposal this evening. Subsequent to our meeting with you in September, we did have a Zoom meeting with a number of residents who were present online for that first meeting. We scheduled that meeting for October 1st. We had 9 residents that participated in that. Again, a very positive meeting, answered a lot of their questions, explained the proposal a little bit in more detail so they could understand specifically. I think there was some confusion as to what was going to be behind them. Again, it was previously and continues to be planned for single family in the entirety behind their subdivision. And then resubmitted the plans that are before you this evening with the noted changes that Karen discussed. And just basically wanting you to know that this is a process that's been very collaborative. And while there still is one remaining issue, there has been a tremendous amount of progress from our initial proposal back in January to where we are this evening.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. You said, is Wendell here? Oops. Wendell. Raise your hand, Wendell, if you're here. You needed the phone number? Ah, yeah. There we go. Who do I have here? You're gonna have to unmute. ICM Daniel? You there?
Unmute. Yeah, I did. I thought I did.
Yep. Got you. Who is this now? we lost him.
Mr. Fensel, I see you look like you're muted again. Can you unmute yourself again, I think?
Did that work?
Yes, there you are.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We can hear you
Okay.
now, Mr. Fensel. Yep.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
Okay. We had a nice discussion with Carrie about the project. The neighborhood in Green Creek Road has some serious concerns with attaching a street from the new development on Cedar Heights Drive to the
Court A. Court A.
Yeah, to the top of that was that ended in a cul-de-sac. The traffic, the congestion that it would cause, we feel would really aggravate that. On the right side of the Bethany Bible Chapel is a school. There are a number of children go to school there. The traffic is already pretty heavy. Before they put in a stoplight on the Round Street Green Hill Road, there were a number of accidents on there. They've been alleviated by that light, but with 8 multifamily housing units and the traffic that would pull through that little street and to go through the whole housing district or up Round Street is really unacceptable to everybody in the property. We feel that the children from the school, the people from the church, the children from our neighborhood would be adversely impacted by this whole thing. From what I've taken from our conversation, Carrie and Oster are in agreement with us. There needs to be another solution to this. I'd ask the city to consider Heights Drive. This is undeveloped for commercial on the east side of Cedar Heights Drive. If Cedar Heights and a multi-lane roundabout was put on Cedar Heights and Green Hill Road, that could alleviate it. And it would not put children at risk from a housing district, a residential district. Otherwise, we feel that the congestion that this would cause would just be unreasonable for the residents of the community.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Mike, I'm going to go back to you. I see you still have your hand up. Do you want to add some additional comments?
Yes, if I could. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're on.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah. Just following up on some of the points that Carrie made, we have worked hard. There's been a lot of good dialogue back and forth, but we've agreed from the beginning that we were going to be in a disagreement about the road connection. And our rationale behind that I think is well-founded. In this particular piece of property, or this part of Pinnacle Prairie, is unique because it's bisected with the Green Creek and its floodway and floodplain that goes along with it. Originally, we did have a road going across, and Karen, could you flip back the bubble diagram for just a quick minute?
Sure. Let's see here. Find the right, here we go.
There you go, that works. So you can see the yellow finger that goes out to Cedar Heights. That's a relatively narrow strip of land. It was our only frontage on Cedar Heights at that point in time back in 2015. With that width, the only practical way to do any development on that sliver of property would be a road with single-family homes lotted on one side of it. So back in 2015, our thought was let's propose that with the hopes that someday we can pick up another 70 feet of width of property, either to the north of the yellow strip or to the south of it. And with that, then we could create a street that's double loaded with single family homes, and that starts as the introduction to the single family neighborhood. But subsequent to that, of course, like I said at the latter part of last year, we acquired that 15 acres that lies to the north of it. And that was a game changer for us in terms of the layout or the design of this particular area. And the land that we now have that lies to the east of Green Creek, that's about 12 acres, is a nice chunk of ground that we can create a nice neighborhood of itself for multifamily. And it still is part of Pinnacle Prairie with the same design guidelines. It still has the open space connections for everybody's use of the greenway, the trails, the parks. But when we talked about the road system, yes, there's an expense to that, but it goes beyond that. We think that it's sound planning, objective, and an environmental goal to not have to cross and impact floodplains, creeks, and their floodways if we can do it without negatively affecting any of the intersections or other traffic operations. And we think we can do that without negatively affecting the surrounding intersections or traffic operations. And the reason for that is when we look at the road connections that we have out of the residential, and we have actually 5 different ways for residential traffic to get out of that area onto the surrounding arterials. We have Oster Parkway and Round Street on the north side of the development. And we also then on the south side, we have Oster Parkway at Viking, and the road going to the east, that's now labeled Street J on the concept plan. And then of course we have the future connection that we'll be making to Viking Road. So we have 3 connections down on Viking Road. And we feel that with those 5 ways to disperse traffic both in and out, that we can do that without negatively impacting any of those 5 intersections. The safety, that's certainly an important point, and we don't want to create a development or a street network that compromises any sort of safety. But we think we can accomplish that even with the street system that we've shown and not making that road connection. We know that emergency services are located on the west edge of Pinnacle Prairie. That's the new public safety building that houses fire and police. So if there was an emergency in the yellow area or the townhome area, the emergency services would be coming from the west side of Pinnacle Prairie and probably coming down Green Hill to either Pinnacle Parkway or Oster Parkway into the development and then east through any one of the residential streets to serve an emergency in the single family or the townhome area. And then in terms of the safety for the multifamily area, we would expect emergency services to come down from the station. They would come down Green Hill to Cedar Heights and go south on Cedar Heights, just as they might have to provide services to the Cedar Hills development immediately to the north. They would follow that same route. But at our entrance, what we would propose would be a split entrance design whereby we can provide 2 ways in and out, albeit off the same road. But with an entry design like that, the 2 lanes are spread further apart rather than a typical median that might be 10 feet wide. With a split entrance design for emergency services, that median might be 30 or 40 feet wide. And additionally, the lanes themselves would be wider than normal. So that if there was an accident blocking one of the lanes at that entrance, there is a second entrance available for emergency services to use. Or if a tree in a storm, if a tree were to fall across one of the lanes, there's another lane available for emergency services to come in on. And all of the details of that design and the exact widths, of course, will be worked out during final planning. But that's a technique that we've used on other developments that have restrictions for access. And we think that's a good solution, and we're willing to incorporate that into our design plans as the preliminary planning and final planning move forward for this piece of property. And I think Wendell, if Wendell is on, I talked to him shortly before the meeting, and he had a few points based on his engineering background and the local knowledge of the area that he wanted to bring up relative to this, to the road issue.
All right. Wendell, are you there? Raise your hand, please, if you are. Not seeing your name on my list. Unless you're the 266-5829 number.
Okay.
So I don't know if we have Wendell tonight, Mike.
Okay, I'll try to fill in for him because he and I chatted about the comments that he wanted to bring up. Karen, did you receive the email from Wendell with the floodplain map?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Could you pull that up?
Let's see here. Just take me a minute here to change some things around here. Not seeing the share option here anymore. Here we go. Okay.
Okay, and what we're going to want to do, I don't know if you can zoom in, Karen, but the area just west of Pinnacle Prairie on the west side of 58, where the industrial park is.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to manipulate your map very well. Let's look.
No, there you go. There you go. You're doing good.
Yeah, there we go.
And if you could put your cursor on the industrial park that's just on the west side of 58.
The industrial park?
Yeah, right there you go, right in that area. And I didn't realize this, but this is what Wendell had brought to my attention. You can see we have a drainage going through there. That the floodplain is what's in blue. And you can see that with the street layout on the east side of that drainage, which is the industrial park, as well as the residential street network on the west side, you can see some dead-end streets that probably at one time were put there in contemplation of going across the drainage, but they haven't been made. They weren't made when the development took place. And as you can see there, that's a little more than a mile north-south between Green Hill Road and Viking Road that doesn't have any crossings of that floodplain. And I think it's because it's respecting the drainage and open space characteristics of that corridor. A similar situation happens just a little bit further north of here. Karen, if you could slide the map to just, yes. And in the area, the curve of University Avenue that heads to the southwest, if you can put your cursor on that, following University Avenue to the west. And there's that big curve right there. Yeah, you can see that's a different drainage, but you can see the limited amount of street crossings that go across that drainage, again, as it goes from University Avenue and heads southwesterly. So Wendell wanted to bring that up to just identify what we think is good environmental planning as it comes to treating our road crossings of certain floodplains and floodways and creeks.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it for the additional information that we wanted to provide you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, is there anyone else on the attending tonight participants that would like to make a comment on this project? I would ask you to raise your hand and I can recognize you. And seeing none, I'll bring this back to the commission and maybe just talk about some of our options, because this is a little different than a typical item we usually have, in the fact that, for one, we have two items here. We have a land use map amendment, which the staff has recommended approval of, and then we have the rezoning request to the MU, which has, in its present state, is as proposed by the applicant, is not being recommended by the staff. So, help me, Karen, if I get off course here, but I think we can. So each of those two items have to be addressed separately: the land use map and the zoning. And so, depending on which way the commission would like to go with the zoning, there's a couple options. One is to approve the request of the developer as is, or we can deny the request as is per the staff's recommendation, or based on our discussion here, if it looks like there is potential for further development or changes by the developer after our discussion, we could also continue this item to a future meeting if there is some other discussion on potential changes or as they see what may happen with this request. So kind of have three options to think about as we go into this discussion. So
looks like Dale maybe had a question.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I do. In view of watching that area grow out there, one of the things I've noticed is there's 4 lanes on Viking up to the roundabout, and then it's 2 lanes on Cedar Heights, and then it's 2 lanes all the way to Green Hill. So how long is it going to be before Cedar Heights is going to be 4 lanes from Green Hill all the way over to Viking? And what that brings to mind to me is, do we really want another road dumping on to Cedar Heights if it's going to be 4 lanes?
So I would respond to that. There is a project in the works to improve Cedar Heights Drive to a 3-lane cross section there, not a 4-lane. But the intent of the arterial street network is to carry traffic. And so the general principle is that you have then collector streets that feed into the arterial street network at approximately every quarter mile. And that provides good street circulation within the neighborhoods and then helps control the access points on our arterial streets. Of course, we have to allow good access to the arterial streets, otherwise nobody can get out of the neighborhoods. So I think there's a balance there of those different functions of those different street types.
Karen, is there a roundabout planned for Huntington?
There's one shown in the street plan for the road improvements as a concept, but I don't know if that's exactly been approved yet.
So the Cedar Heights and Green Hill thing is in motion, as I understand.
Yeah, that's in the CIP.
And Huntington would be a future. Okay. Is there any way to bring the map back up on the screen?
Which map are you? The concept plan map?
The proposed concept.
Sure. Let's see. Everybody see that now? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So to expand on what Dale brought up, a couple of things. I see the proposed multifamily area as an infill site. separate from the Pinnacle Prairie area. If we think about it that way, we'll see that Street A, which is the next one parallel south of Green Creek, we see that as just a basic local road with a cul-de-sac. I think that if that Street A were to be converted from a local road into a major collector, it could cause a lot more, or justify a lot more rethinking of the rest of the design. So if we're staying as true as we can to the original map, I think it makes the most sense to think about this multifamily area as infill. Now, looking at it that way specifically, we're talking about rezoning and a map amendment. And if we were to be looking at a specific development plan, the point of this zoning would be to bring all of that back before the commission. So based on the density, if there are access issues and that sort of thing, I feel like that would come up later. And I guess based on that, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't make sense to approve the land use map and the zoning. I agree with a lot of the things that were said earlier as far as emergency vehicles and that sort of thing. It makes a lot of sense. Back to what Dale was saying, the idea of turning that Street A into a major collector and putting it out just ahead of that potential roundabout at Huntington I don't think it makes as much sense. And like I said, if we're going to be looking at this again, if it were to get developed, there's time to figure out a few of these things. But I think we should be thinking about that multifamily as an infill lot separate from Pinnacle Prairie as we're looking at this map. Open to more discussions, but I move to approve both items.
Let's, Kyle,
Yeah,
let's do each one separately.
that's fine. I wonder if maybe it would make sense to approve the land use map if,
You want to make a motion on that?
yeah, why don't I withdraw my previous motion and move to approve the amendment?
Great. Is there a second on approving the land use?
I second.
It's seconded by Dale. Okay, is there any further discussion on the land use of map amendment? Seeing none, I will go ahead and ask Ms. Howard to take a roll call vote.
Okay, let me get to my right page here. Hartley,
Aye.
Holst,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Leeper,
Aye.
Lynch. Oh, she's raising her hand because she had some interference with her line. That's what we were hearing earlier. So she's giving a thumbs up on that. Prideaux,
Aye.
Saul,
Aye.
and Sherrod.
Aye.
Did I get everybody?
Mhm.
Okay. All voting aye.
All right, so that carries. So then we have still the matter of the zoning proposal. Is there a motion on that? And we can have further discussion.
You know, I have to agree with Kyle. I think you need to look at that multi-housing area that as a separate entity away from Prairie Parkway. I would make a motion that we approve our RZ20 to 002. That would be my motion to approve it. And
I
send it to
second.
council.
Okay,
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there a further discussion? I guess I do take the opposite view. That's a long darn way from Green Hill Road down to that, down to Viking Road to have no connection to a whole pretty large area of development. And I think we've seen that in other times where we don't have connections. And you know, part of good city planning is to have a lot of connections. And to me, to have a multifamily there with Yeah, you can do some things, maybe have two accesses, but that's a fairly small area to have two accesses from. Doesn't leave anywhere else to go. I don't think I think somewhere along there, it doesn't have to necessarily be through that multifamily area. It could be somewhere else, but in my mind, there should be another road there somewhere to connect to the east.
I would agree with Marty. Just in the packet, the International Fire Code with no more than 30 single units, and this would have approximately 180. That's quite a bit of increase beyond the recommendation. I would be interested in seeing some other options.
We're not approving a site plan with 180 units.
Right.
Approving zoning that could be a what could. So if we were looking at a site plan, I think it's pretty likely that it would have been vetted to where those details are sorted out. This is a concept, and I don't see that it's fair, especially with the timeline elapsed with the pandemic, to hold up this step of the process over what I would consider finer points. Maybe the options end up being that with an entrance off of Cedar Heights and no connection through, that maybe it does limit it to 30 units in there. Those are possibilities, but I don't see where the rezoning would interfere with that, because that would come up again at plan review.
I just want to interject here just a little bit to clarify the zoning issue. The request is for mixed use, and associated with the mixed use designation is a requirement for a master plan. And when you get then to the platting and the actual development, site plan development, those then have to follow that master plan. And so that's why we're going into quite a bit of development here. The mixed use zone allows quite a bit of flexibility with the development, but you have to follow the master plan. Then it's not just open for anything to occur here. So it goes hand in hand here. The rezoning request for MU here goes hand in hand with this update to the master plan. So if the street connections are important here to serve the entire neighborhood here as the area develops out, that's the concern, is making sure we have that right street network to serve the entire neighborhood.
Karen, I have a question. If this infill site, as I'm calling it, if the density of that were to change in putting together a site plan to review, would the map have to be updated again at that point?
So the zoning would have to be updated again. So we'd have to come back through this process again. So if that is the desire, that's not what's being proposed tonight, though. We have a proposal here that's a concept plan that goes with the zoning. So if you vote for this, that's what's been allowed with the zoning. So you can't go back then later and say, oh, now we're only going to allow 30 units here because you have an adopted zoning and adopted master plan that shows approximately 180 units.
Right. Well, there are a lot of things that perhaps aren't ideal, but I kind of defer back to the thinking that the broader strokes of the actual Pinnacle Prairie development are least changed and least affected by thinking about this infill area separately. And there are some things that aren't ideal, but it looks pretty well thought out. It does a lot of good things. And as far as the traffic interjection, I don't see where it would be. I don't see where it would be an improvement to the collection going on to Cedar Heights by connecting that. I think it just make people race through those local roads looking for a shortcut.
Aaron, to Kyle's point, if we were to think about this east lot as a separate development and not part of the larger MU, how does that change the discussion about the road, or does it?
Well, I think that's really a question. It's not a question that's on the agenda for a different zoning designation. I guess that's a whole different question. A different zoning designation were proposed here. I do think that there's going to continue, regardless of what zoning is proposed here, there continues to be that question about providing good traffic circulation as the city grows out in this area. And I just want to point out that it's not just for this multifamily area, but it's for the entire development. So if you think about the comment made about Round Street, for example, if there's no east-west connection through here, no way to get over to Cedar Heights Drive, that means that Round Street, as the single-family area and the townhouse area builds out, people wanting to go up to Green Hill Road are forced all to go on Round Street then, if they're going to the east. If there's another, so the point is, the more connections there are, the more options people have, and more the traffic is distributed. It's just a general principle. The more connections you have, then people have different routes and they can distribute the traffic, and it reduces the traffic then on each one of those streets. If you don't allow those connections, it then is going to funnel a lot of that traffic on the remaining streets, including Round Street and Oster and some of those streets. So the more options you provide, the better the traffic circulation.
My question, Karen, was if we were just talking about the east development, would we be talking about the road?
I think we would be considering that. Yes, I think that would be consideration if it was proposed as any other zoning district. We would also be considering, one of the considerations is good street access. So we would be considering, should that street be stubbed? If they're going to bring a street in there to serve the multifamily, should there be a street stub to the property boundary that would then be extended? Just like any other development that we do, we'd be talking about street connectivity.
Yeah, I think if you look at the map there, there's regular connections to Green Hill and to Viking coming along as you go east-west, and then all of a sudden you get over here to Cedar Heights, and it's like between Viking and Green Hill, and there's no connection to that whole development through there. I mean, I think the master plan, everything is all wonderful, but there's just no connections, and Karen's point, I mean, that just puts more pressure on those other ones that are existing, because there's a whole lot of development going on here. It's going to create a whole lot more traffic. So, you know, the earlier discussion about concern about like the Round Street connection, well, that's just going to get more traffic, especially it has to, because it, you know, just because of the additional development, and especially if there's no more connections to the east.
I look at this thing and I look at it and say, well, you're going to create a T intersection on Cedar Heights. Why don't you look at another option and go into Huntington Road and connect into the roundabout?
That would make sense.
It makes perfect sense, but you know, I look at it. I hate to see a T intersection anyplace on a major road.
I'm not.
That's why I said earlier, it's not ideal. I mean, if we could shake a magic wand over this with a grave amount of eminent domain, we could make this thing look just perfect. But we've got to work with what we've got here. And one thing I find kind of interesting is that if that Street A were to become, you know, were to transform from a local road with a cul-de-sac to a collector, and then dump out onto Cedar Heights, and then we've got Huntington right there. What's to say that there wouldn't be a bigger traffic demand at Street A instead of Huntington? Maybe Huntington is not where that roundabout's needed. Maybe there's one needed right in the middle of this. And there's so much development to go in, you know, south of Green Creek. It's hard to, you know, any of this stuff is crystal ball. So that's why I keep trying to look at this separately. One more practical thing I just kind of thought of, if the goal is to, you know, kind of isolate some of these things, you know, the land to the east from the other future single family development, if there's this kind of a practical thing, the idea of building a bridge across that, the creek and the wetland and whatever else is in there, I mean, that could be I don't even have any idea. I'm imagining that could be a $500,000 thing or more. If we want to see these areas developed, I think avoiding some practical roadblocks like that are a good thing, because $500,000 or $600,000 or $800,000 of additional cost where there isn't any usable land, obviously, could make these unusable, or maybe perhaps not practical. And those kinds of things don't always come up, but I think it's maybe in this case something to consider as well.
I do think I want to point out that, in the staff report too, this is not the only, this is what was brought before us, this street pattern concept plan. So as noted, there might be other options for other way to get an east-west street connection. Prairie View Road could be realigned a little bit through the development. Huntington Road could be shown through the development. So there might be other options that are equal or better to extending that cul-de-sac bulb. What staff has had to do is give a recommendation on what's being proposed here. And I think if something different were proposed, I think we still feel like an east-west connection is needed, but there might be another option out there that might be better.
I guess what I'm saying is I agree with you, Karen. I think there needs to be an east-west connection there onto Cedar Heights, but I don't think it needs to be right there, like Kyle says, on this infill area. It could be south of there. So anyway, go ahead.
But then the point is, if we approve this, then basically there will be no connection ever, because we approved it without. Because it's a master plan, and that's why it's important that we make the decision now. We don't have to say the connection is going to be where off that cul-de-sac. It could be, as Karen pointed out, it could be anywhere else. But I think the fact is that there needs to be a connection there somewhere. I don't, and there are options.
Right. Well, Marty, Huntington makes sense. I mean, it just right. does. There's just not a way to get through there now. Is there any reason why?
That could be planned for, that could be part of the plan. Right?
In such a way that there would be a future connection to the Huntington roundabout. Right. I mean, you get, like on Ashworth and, is it Ashworth where the Green Hill Village entrance is? So when you look at Prairie West or Prairie Winds or whatever it is to the west of there, all of that's kind of designed so that eventually at some point in the future, when those couple of in-town acreage farmhouses were to change hands or whatever, there could be another, major boulevard entrance to serve the Prairie West area. So that situation there isn't ideal right now, but it was designed so that it could be made ideal in the future. Right. And maybe that's worth looking at in this case. Regardless, I think turning Street A into a collector and then dumping it out onto Cedar Heights as the best hand we've got today probably isn't is forward thinking. So here's the situation. We don't have a solution at this point, and that's why I also offered the possibility that this item can be continued, because while extending the cul-de-sac may not be the ideal way to do that, I do think something needs to be done, and I would agree that coming off that cul-de-sac may not be the ideal way to do it, because but somewhere along that road, I think it needs to connect. Huntington seems to be a point where that would be make a lot of sense. But the problem is, if we go ahead and approve this, then there will be no connection for sure, because we have approved a total plan that does not show any connection, because this is a MU. This is not just a piece by piece where they come back and we get a road later on. I mean, that's the master plan, as Karen pointed out, which will be followed. So that's why it's got to be careful we don't make a big mistake.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
Can I ask to make a comment?
where's,
Daniel?
oh, Daniel.
Yeah.
Wait.
Daniel, hold on. We're having a commission discussion right now.
So there does need to be a motion, yeah, one way or the other, to either continue the hearing or to vote on it. And even if you vote on it tonight, it doesn't mean that the developer can't bring it back to you with another option. But the simpler thing would be if you think there needs to be a change to continue the hearing to a future meeting.
I'll make a motion that we deny the second part of this, and hopefully we can get a resolution for the next meeting. Because to me, there are other options out there that we're just not looking at. And I know part of the city planning is to look at all those things, but I think Huntington Road is an option that someone needs to look at and look at the land around it and who owns it and how can it be developed and what's the plan for the future of it. You know, those are all things that need to be looked at. So I will make a motion that we will deny this. Okay.
No.
Is there a second?
I second that. I agree. We have to solve this before we approve.
So Marty, just a point of,
Yeah, go ahead.
just to make sure we get this right. The motion always needs to be made in the affirmative. So Dale's originally motion could be to vote for approval, but then people can vote to deny. So that way it's real clear what the vote is about. So the motion always needs to be in the affirmative. So sorry to be technical about that.
So does that motion need to be withdrawn or does it not stand?
Yeah, it needs to be withdrawn, and then the motion to approve then could be voted yes or no.
So the only way the motion can be withdrawn is if everybody votes negative?
Well, we could table it or defer it as well.
Yeah.
So you can continue the hearing. You can vote to deny or approve, but the motion needs to be made in the affirmative.
Okay.
So, right, Marty?
You're the expert on the rules here. So
We need to clean that up first, or can we ask another question?
yeah, go ahead and go ahead. Question, Kyle.
Karen, maybe this is more of a question for the developer, but are there any other substantial ideas or concepts that came into discussion early on that are noteworthy?
For the road connection, no, we haven't seen any other concept for a connection.
I have one other question. So I was, maybe it's not a great example, but it's something that's familiar to me where we're talking about Ashworth, and it's much simpler, obviously, but where this roundabout might go at Huntington, is it legal or reasonable to design some future plan over top of where those houses are to where there's maybe a more sensible, economical, and almost organic east-west connection there to kind of satisfy all things as well? Can that be done, or is that, do we have to work in these little notches?
Well, I think that's challenging. If you've got existing development to show a road stub to an existing developed properties, it's going to be really difficult to get that street connection through there. So I guess staff would probably recommend against that, just because of we don't know if that will ever occur then, and then we have a piece of road that can't be completed.
But back to the Ashworth thing, is that more forward thinking 20, 30 years down the road?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, if like with Ashworth, I don't think unless there's something new there, I don't think anybody really knows when that might ever change too, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot more sense than kind of ad hoc additional collector introductions to Hudson Road. So, I mean, like with this area here in the big long-term scope of things, 30, 40 years down the road, if that ideal east-west location is Huntington, what would be the steps and kind of planning up to that point, and then with our Band-Aids, just working on, working around that, waiting for it to happen? Or is that a bad approach? I don't know. I'm thinking out loud a little bit here.
Well, Huntington Road does extend through the Pinnacle Prairie area. So it doesn't extend through the existing single-family area that's there now already.
I didn't see that on the master plan.
I don't see where Huntington goes west after Cedar Heights. Am I
Not
missing?
either.
So here's the roundabout here in the, right here. So if Huntington were to extend, it would extend through this little commercial area, for example.
And that works, it fits?
So yes, it could be made to work for sure.
Huntington Road here,
Yeah.
extend right through there.
Oh.
Where it's commercial.
The other thing is Prairie View Road is another road that's a kind of a major road here that goes through the center here. And, things could be shifted here potentially. And certainly, maybe the developer would have a comment about whether they would like to have the opportunity to explore some of those other options.
Well, I guess with that all said, obviously we got to circle back to Dale's motion, but I would maybe move to defer this just to the next meeting to give the developer some time to maybe comment on some of this stuff. I think there's a little bit too much for us to just make a call on it. I'd like to see us as a body a little bit more in agreement. And I feel like we could flip a coin on this, and I don't like that, I guess.
I don't either.
So I think Dale's previous motion was withdrawn.
Okay.
So Kyle, we could have.
I'm moving to defer to the next meeting. And
So it would be a motion to continue the hearing because we are in a public hearing.
Yes.
I would second.
Okay, so that's been moved in second. I think at this point, Mike, from the developer, I'm going to give you a chance to get you unmuted here and give you a chance to make any comments you have on this. Mike, you want to unmute yourself? I think you can.
Okay.
Yeah, there you should be. So
Yes. Yeah.
I think you wanted to maybe make some comment or your feelings on this this whole road connection.
Yeah, a couple of things that I've heard over the last 20 minutes or so. The one comment was brought up about the T intersection on Cedar Heights Road that would be created with that entrance coming out of the multifamily. And that's true, that would be a T intersection. However, as you know, the land on the east side is undeveloped. And I would expect that when that does develop, if there is already a road in place, the city would require access to that eastern development to line up with the entrance to the multifamily. That's just good design, and thus it would create a four-way intersection. I just wanted to bring that up as how we might envision the future development to take place along there. To go to the more relevant issue of the road crossing, we had thought about a road crossing at Huntington. We've talked about road crossings elsewhere, but we all come back to that same argument. We think that with those additional connections that are available to traffic from the residential area to get out to Green Hill and to Viking, keeping in mind, Viking is a good route to provide residents an opportunity to go east. It's not as direct as Green Hill, but it certainly is there with great roundabouts, and there's going to be connections made to that. But we had considered it. Candidly, if the motion is to table, to bring back, I candidly don't think there will be anything different that we would bring back to you. I think you do have, and Karen, I think I'll ask you this question. I think you would have an option to make a motion to, and if it needs to be in the affirmative, to approve something, but simply attach a subject to, and that subject to could be anything you, as the commission, wanted to attach to it, such as a recommendation to approve subject to a road crossing being provided between Huntington and Cedar Heights. I've seen that commonly done in other communities we work in, and I just throw that out, that we appreciate the deliberation, but again, I don't know that anything would change in our thinking at this point. But I think there are, as a commission, you have options on how to move it forward and still let your concerns be addressed.
So I would just comment on that, Mr. Holst, if you'd like me to comment on that.
Yes, please.
Okay. I think staff feels it's a lot cleaner in this particular case because there's a master plan involved here. So if the development team is thinking that they might like to have a Huntington Road connection here and have that be the option, then it really should be shown in the master plan. So, and remember, you're trying to send something to council that's easy for them to vote on, and so a conditional zoning means that the developer needs to sign on to that agreement, that they're agreeing to that condition. If they're not, then that really can't go forward to council. So it's a lot cleaner just to vote, either to continue the hearing, but if the development team is not interested in making any changes to the master plan or the zoning that's proposed, you can vote to deny, and that would be also something then the development team could bring forward a new proposal. After having some consideration of that, they can bring forward a new proposal for rezoning with a new proposal for the master plan. So it's not like it's the end of the story to deny this tonight either.
Well, if the developer wouldn't enjoy any kind of benefit to revisiting or continuing the hearing, then I withdraw my motion to defer and would make a motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Hartley.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, further discussion on the motion to approve.
If it's approved, Karen, does the design of this little infill area, I keep calling it, does it have to look like that, or is it just an idea? I mean, what are we trying to adhere to in looking at a future site plan? Is it verbatim, or is it just the general density, or what does that mean?
So the principles behind the concept would need to be followed. What they're showing on there would need to be followed. The major issues of the green space, the amenities, the general character of that, and I think the street connection. Frankly, if there needs to be a street connection there, those things would need to be followed in any future site plan that would be brought forward.
And then I think I heard you say something earlier that if there was a change to the plan, say a reduction in density or reconfiguration of the entrances or whatever, that would not require rezoning again. That would require a site plan approval and a map update at that time. Am I correct in understanding how that works?
No, they need to come back and amend the master plan. If they're going to show something significantly different than what was proposed in the master plan, it would need to go back through this process again.
Okay. So the master plan would need to be updated, but it would not need to be rezoned again.
So if it was rezoned to mixed use, they would be allowed to develop the way the master plan is shown today, if it was approved.
Okay, I just thought it'd be helpful for everyone to kind of just clarify what that means.
Right. Okay.
Yes, a couple comments, Marty. I'm torn on this one a little bit because I understand the connectivity issue, and certainly is on the edge of, how much connectivity we want there. I do feel like that in normal circumstances, I would agree Karen, with the assessment, but I don't like some of the things that the road does. I guess as I look at it, it creates a condition on Cedar Heights that honestly I don't love, and the bisection of the greenway, you know, as a pedestrian arterial is another thing for us to consider as a planning group as well. And it bisects a pretty major connector north-south. So I don't know, to me, it being on the edge of connectivity, I guess those other things kind of trump it for me, but. Tough issue.
It is. Like we all kind of have agreed that it's not ideal, but you know, it looks to me like a pretty good effort with the hand that's been dealt. I mean, I just without just taking over all those houses there, I just don't see what else really that much better could be done and practical. But
I guess I see, you know, as I look at it, if I'm putting a connection, I mean, I really think Huntington Road should somehow connect into this development, because Huntington Road's a major road, or going to be in the future, but it is a significant road now, and to not have that connect into the development seems just a really bad choice in my mind. Any further comment? And hearing none, I guess we'll get to the vote. So a vote in the affirmative, or an aye vote, would be a vote to approve the MU zoning as proposed by the developer. A vote of no would be to deny the proposed zoning as it is right now. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So with that in mind, Karen, I'll ask you to take the roll call vote.
Hartley,
Nay.
Holst,
No.
Larson,
yes.
Leeper,
Aye.
Lynch. No, that's a no. Prideaux,
Nay.
Saul,
Yes, aye.
and Sherrod.
Aye.
Okay, we have a 4-4 tie here, so the motion fails.
They didn't rezone it.
Okay. So thank you for everybody for all the participation and the
Too much conflict right now.
all the discussion on that. So we will move on
Nope.
now to our
I'm gonna let you talk.
wait a second. Next item of business, we have, let me get here. We have one item of new business tonight, and that is a Central Business District Overlay Design Review for NRG Pilates. And who is going to introduce that tonight?
That would be me, Mr. Host.
All right, JD, you're up. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Host.
I
Good
will
evening.
move this forward. Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Karen. Okay, so this is a first new case for tonight. It's a Central Business District Overlay Design Review for a new business, NRG Pilates, which will be going on 114 West 5th Street. As you can see on the highlighted area, that is the place where the new business will be going, and it will be located on the southeast corner of West 5th and Washington Street. So the applicant in the next slide, I can just walk you through the overall proposal by the applicant. As you see, the red highlighted area is where the store will be going. On the image to the right, the petitioner proposes to add a projecting awning over public sidewalk along both the facades, both along Washington and along the West 5th Street. The other part of the proposal also includes a new projecting sign over public sidewalk on the northwest corner, which will be highlighting the new business NRG Pilates. In the next slide, I would just walk you through the details of the proposal. So the first part of the proposal, as we discussed, is to add a projecting awning that will be along the Washington Street. This will be making a new and look over for the facade. The awning is about 4 feet by a foot and 4 inches tall, and it is likely to project about 3 feet. And also it will maintain the clear distance from ground to the bottom of the awning, about 8 feet, which is required as per the code. Regarding the material aspect, the projected awning will be made from aluminum tube sections and will be covered by Sunbrella Kinko fabric, and will be also colored in sage green color. The applicant has used this color to give it, to highlight this or emphasize this business in this building. The next slide will talk about the other part of the proposal that includes the projecting sign. So there is a circular sign which is being proposed, which will will have a diameter of 4 feet 6 inches, approximately about 20 square feet of area per sign face. The projecting sign will be projecting about 5 feet over public sidewalk, and will maintain about 10 feet of distance, clear height distance from the sidewalk, which is required by the code. The other addition on this facade, which is along the West 5th, is adding the projected awning, which will again be projecting about 3 feet into the public sidewalk, over public sidewalk, and will have maintain the clear distance of 8 feet. The material that will be used to highlight the sign will be acrylic lettering on an aluminum surface, and it will be a two-tone sign with mostly black in the background and sage green color to match the awning. So that would be just a new makeover for the building, as well as to emphasize this new business of NRG Pilates at 114 West 5th Street. So in the next slide, the recommendation is to approve the case as per the submitted design review. And just for all the commissioners and the people who are listening, if this is approved today, this will be going to the council meeting for approval, and then the applicant can start working by pulling sign permits. So that is the future thing that will be done on this item. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, JD. Do we have any attendees who would like to make a comment on this proposal? If so, please raise a hand. Here we are. Okay, Mason. Mason, unmute yourself. You should be able to talk. There you go.
I should be able to talk now. I just wanted to say that this is going to be the most important sign and awning set downtown.
We can't argue with you, I'm afraid.
This package will revolutionize and change the direction of Cedar Falls in an all new direction. It's going to be great.
Well, it looks very good, Mason. Any questions for Mason from the commission?
Just a comment.
Go ahead.
What do you got, Leanne?
I'm excited that it's going to change the direction of downtown Cedar Falls, and I move to approve.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Looks great to me too. So we'll go ahead, and Karen, can you take the roll call vote?
Okay, Hartley.
Aye.
Holst.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Leeper.
Aye.
Lynch. Thumbs up. Prideaux,
Aye.
Saul,
Aye.
Shrod.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you very much. So that it concludes all of our, oh, nope, I'm sorry. Got to scroll down to my next, I lied before. We have 2 items of new business. Forgot about it. We have a rezoning request from R4 multiple residence district to C3 commercial district. And who's going to introduce that one today?
I'll introduce myself. I'm Tom Weintraub. I'm the new Planner 3 for Cedar Falls, and I will be introducing this request. It is the petitioner's Levi Architecture on behalf of the owner, S&G Pack. This property is located at 2128 College Street on the northeast corner, and this was one of the star properties in this College Hill presentation earlier. This property currently has split zoning, as you can see in the left picture. The property is highlighted in red, but the purple line divides the C3 from the R4. That line actually goes through a building. Probably this was drawn in to align with the alleys to the properties to the north back when the zoning ordinance was adopted in 1970. The property currently contains the one structure. They're requesting to go from R4 and actually C3 because of the legal description on the property. They're not sure it matches up with the zoning lines, and so they're just requesting to rezone it from C3 and R4 to just C3 so they make sure they cover the property. So that's why it's kind of listed that way. The request from R4 to C3 is consistent with the future land use. If you look at the land use map there, you see that the entire parcel is neighborhood commercial mixed use. And then you notice that this split of the properties for the land use and the zoning is sort of all along this area. The comprehensive plan encourages bringing mixed-use development into this area along College Street as the plan suggested, to provide that link between the upper hill and the lower hill and make it a more walkable, cohesive retail area. Next slide, please. As far as access to public services, this property has been developed since the structure was built in the 1960s. So the site has water, sewer, all the other services available to it. Next slide. This site has access to both College Street and 22nd Street, but you notice that currently the curb cuts are about 50 feet wide, which are non-conforming at this point. There's no proposal for any immediate redeveloping of this property, but if it does, then these curb cuts would probably have to be adjusted and come into compliance. The other thing with the College Hill Overlay District, it recommends bringing buildings up to the corner and the frontage of the street, so that we would encourage a building to basically be in location where these curb cuts are, and then the curb cut would be more than likely off of 22nd and further up College. The R4 currently serves as a transition district between lower density and the commercial use districts. So this rezoning would bring this site into a position where it would be easier to develop in the future. It currently has the retail liquor and the vape store, and if they wanted to do any plans in the future, that R4 section would make it difficult. Here are a couple more sites, pictures of the site. So you see it is the Bonnie site, and you can see the wide area of asphalt. And again, part of the goal of the College Hill plan is to make these streets more inviting, more in tune to an active street front. And right now, when you have large expanses of parking along streets that are not very welcoming. The C3 would allow for a broad range of commercial uses. Again, the front portion of this is C3. We talked about the intent of the College Hill District is to regulate development and land uses, and to provide some guidance for building and site design standards, maintenance and development of residential and business districts in a manner that complements the University of Northern Iowa campus and promotes some community vitality and strengthens the commercial enterprises that are in that area. Again, we talked about the placement of the building on the site, the recommendations to bring them to the street frontage. The technical comments, there's really no concerns with this property since it is currently, there's no change in the site, but as the site redevelops and there's a lot of things that are non-conforming to the site and to both the College Hill overlay and the C3 district that would have to be brought into compliance. Staff recommends getting comments from the Planning and Zoning Commission and public, and then to continue to discuss on this rezoning request and set a date for a public hearing. And that.
Oh, Marty, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Do we have anybody representing the owner or others who would like to comment on this proposed rezoning? If so, raise a hand. Here we go. Dan, I think you're on. Okay. Dan, if you unmute yourself, should be able to talk.
There we go. Now we can. Thank you. Thomas, I think clearly delineated the path that we're on. The owner is making this request because there is discussion afoot about redevelopment of this prominent corner, its importance to the downtown or to the College Hill area. And we have already had some excellent conversations with Karen and the consultants over the issue that was first on the agenda tonight, and got a lot of positive feedback from them and some comments about where that direction was headed. It was a week and a half ago. So while that's not formalized, we are already having those discussions and going to be discussing it with the owner about redevelopment of that lot to be as much as possible in compliance with the overall vision for the College Hill Overlay District.
All right, thank you. Catherine, I see you would like to speak also. Let me get you up here. Catherine, is you on? Okay, you should be good.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I sent a letter over late this afternoon. I apologies for that to Karen to forward out to all of you, but I'll just briefly read it on behalf of the College Hill Partnership. So we're writing you after our October board meeting discussion and our support of this agenda item to rezone the property at 2128 College Street from C3 Commercial District and R4 Multiple Residence District to C3 Commercial District for the October 14, 2020 meeting. This rezoning aligns with the past vision plans created by the City of Cedar Falls and supported by the College Hill Partnership. If the Commission and Council choose to approve this rezoning request, it will allow for improvements and changes to be made to the property located at this address. Any changes or enhancements would currently be difficult due to the split zoning district it falls within. Making it easier for businesses to improve their property helps our district expand, enhance, and welcomes patrons to all College Hill businesses and our entire community. We hope you will vote in favor of this rezoning request for the betterment of College Hill and Cedar Falls.
Great, thank you, Catherine. I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion or discussion. Seems like a pretty straightforward item to clean up an existing inconsistency in the zoning. So it seems pretty simple in my mind.
Yep, I would agree. And it's right in line with what we're possibly envisioning for College Hill. So I would move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Are we approving this, or are we approving to put it on the next meeting for hearing? Is that?
Oh, yeah. Do we have? Are we able to approve it tonight?
We can't approve.
Do we have the option to approve, Karen?
can't approve a rezoning in one meeting because Cedar Falls ordinance requires the Planning and Zoning Commission to hold a public hearing. So we would be then setting a public hearing.
It has to carry on to the next meeting. Okay.
Well, we showed our hand.
That's right. Darn, that's going to be too much big of a surprise, I guess. So this will carry on. This will be on next meeting's agenda then.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and set the public hearing and publish the notice in the paper for that.
Okay, that's great. All right. So I believe, I'm just double checking, didn't leave anything off. That is our final item. So any commission updates before we end the meeting, Karen?
I just want to make sure everybody was didn't have any questions about the next Planning and Zoning Commission. Then will be a hybrid meeting that we will hold in the council chambers, similar to what the council has been doing for their council meetings. We'll be in the council chambers. There will be some limited seating for the public according to the CDC guidelines. And so I just want to make sure the commission didn't have any questions about that. You will be, everyone in the room will be required to wear a mask during the meeting.
Okay.
Any questions about that or
is there
concerns?
any notice required to participate via Zoom instead of in person, or vice versa?
I guess I'm not understanding your question. So
Well,
the public can Zoom in on the meeting. There'll be an option for Zoom. What will be done is then if people come into City Hall, as soon as the seats are filled, no more would be allowed in. So, but they would still have the option to Zoom in, of course, on their smartphones or their computers.
And in seeing the silver lining to this, that if one of us commissioners were otherwise going to be absent from an in-person meeting, we could Zoom in. I guess my question was, is there anything procedurally that we need to do to prepare for that, or is it pretty much the same as what we've been doing?
No, our IT staff will be here to help, just like similar to the city council meetings, making sure everybody can hear each other. It's been working pretty well for council, I believe, with the hybrid meetings. So yeah, so you'd have the option to also Zoom into the meeting.
Do we need to let you know, Karen, so that they can send us a Zoom request?
Yes, you will need to let me know. Yeah. So we'll take our roll call, sort of like we'll have a call ahead of time. But if you know for certain before then, let me know as soon as possible, please.
All right, thank you.
Well, good luck, Marty.
Oh, the other thing I would like to, I do want to mention that there's more to go on the resilience plan, and Tom is leading that effort. He's doing a really great job as the project manager for that. We've had some good input so far, but the public meetings are coming up. I don't know if Tom wants to make a comment about that or promote that to make sure people know about it.
Yeah, the public workshops begin next Tuesday, and we'll have 3 on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, and then 3 on the following Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on topics. And the website is www.cfresilience.com, and it'll show those workshop topics. They're from noon to 1:30, and there'll be Zoom meetings. There'll also be each day opening up at 8 a.m. a pre-recorded presentation and some survey materials. So if a person can't tune into the lunch brown bag meetings, then they could fill out the survey and watch these over that 2-week period as well. There'll be a wrap-up presentation town hall on November 10th at 7 to 8 p.m. It's scheduled to be a Zoom meeting as well. The survey will open back up. If you hadn't had a chance to take the survey, the link for the survey will begin again next Tuesday. So there's still opportunities to take the initial survey, and I would encourage you, if you haven't, to do that.
Great.
I would say I would also promote watching those videos if you have a chance to do that. There's some really good information, really intriguing information that the consultants providing to the community on a lot of these different topics. So I really encourage participation or going to the website to check those out.
All right. Well, thank you very much. A lot going on. Well, we will look forward to our new hybrid meeting next in 2 weeks. And with that, if there's no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
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 You adjourn. Thank you very much for all your hard work tonight.
Thank you.
You have a good night.